Hello.
Hey, Drew.
How's it
How are
going?
you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Sorry, I'm going to turn my volume down. I have my earbuds in and it's a little loud.
Oh, I'll try to not yell.
Oh, no, it's not you. I just have the volume on too loud. Okay.
Hi to both of you. This is Tiffany. I'm going to be filling in for Kiko tonight, so I will be letting folks in to speak and that kind of thing. So if there's any questions on the technical side of it, please just ask me. And we'll be going live to Facebook here shortly.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'll begin with call to order. I call the April 13th, 2021 regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order at 7 p.m. We'll start with a roll call. Commissioner Christensen,
Present.
Commissioner Benavides,
Present.
Commissioner Gay,
Here.
Commissioner Seavey, present. Commissioner Berenson appears to be absent. Commissioner Michelson,
Present.
Commissioner Albert.
Present.
Let the record reflect that a quorum is present for the meeting. We'll move on to approval of the agenda. Director Justice, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
I think I heard Commissioner Gay second that first.
Yeah.
Commissioner Michelson has moved to approve the agenda. Commissioner Gay has seconded the motion. We'll begin with a roll call vote. Commissioner Christensen,
Yay.
Commissioner Benavides,
Yay.
Commissioner Gay,
Yay.
Commissioner Seavey, yay. Commissioner Michelson,
Yay.
Commissioner Albert.
Yay.
Okay, the motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to item 2, public comment period. Residents may address the Planning and Zoning Commission to comment on issues, problems, or successes on topics that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. Audience members will be given an opportunity to comment on agenda items as they come up. Speakers must register with the village staff prior to the beginning of the meeting. Tiffany, who's filling in for Kiko tonight. Tiffany, do we have any members of the public signed up to speak?
No, there are no members of the public signed up to speak for general public comment.
Thank you. Is there anyone in attendance who wishes to speak during the public comment period who did not sign up prior to the meeting? And if so, please use the raise hand tool to indicate this.
I'm not seeing anyone raising their hand.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Item 3A is the approval of the minutes from March 9th, 2021 regular meeting. Do we have any corrections or comments from the commissioners?
Yes, my name is Diane, not Diana.
Thank you, Commissioner Albert. I saw that and was going to remark as well.
Yeah.
Do we-
One N, Diane. Thank you.
Noted. Yeah, we'll get that in the record. Thank you. Do we have any other comments or corrections from the commissioners? Okay, hearing none. And it looks like Commissioner Berenson has joined us, so we'll mark that you are present.
Thank you. It looks like my video is messed up, but
That's fine. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
Yes, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Do we have a second?
Motion.
Okay, Commissioner Michelson. Commissioner Benavides has moved to approve the minutes as amended. Commissioner Michelson has seconded the motion. We'll begin with a roll call vote. Commissioner Christensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Benavides,
Yes.
Commissioner Gay. You're on mute, Commissioner Gay.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Seavey, yes. Commissioner Berenson,
yes.
Commissioner Michelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to item 4, public hearings and applications. Item A is variance 21-03, a request by Ernie and Gary Cedabaca for a variance from 9.2.16 E1 to allow for a total built square footage of 5,368 on the property, 303 square feet exceeding the allowable square footage for the floor area ratio, FAR. in the special use 1 zone in the South Rio Grande character area. The property is located at 4629 Los Poblanos Circle Northwest and is legally known as Lot 36, Los Poblanos Orchards, situated in projected section 31, Township 11 North, Range 3 East, NMPM, Elena Gallegos Grant, Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, New Mexico, as filed in the office of the Bernalillo County Clerk on January 13th, 1999. The property contains 0.56 acres more or less. Do we have any commissioners who will recuse themselves from this item? Okay, hearing none. Attorney Winter, would you please swear in Director Tiffany Justice?
Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Director Justice, may we have the planning report?
Yes. So commissioners, this applicant desires to enclose a currently unenclosed planned roofed area, which is called the pool equipment room. It's going to be attached to the garage, which is attached to a main house that's currently under construction. For the surrounding land uses, the properties to the north, south, and west are all zoned special use, and the property to the east is zoned A1. All of these properties are within the South Rio Grande character area. A quick explanation of the zoning. So this neighborhood, the Los Poblanos Orchards neighborhood, is a planned residential development that allowed for special use zoning on the, I suppose, inner lots that are abutting a communal open space. So in exchange for a smaller lot size, there's a communal open space, hence the special use zoning. And you can see that as this property is 0.56 acres, not 1 acre. So the applicant is requesting a variance to the floor area ratio. So really quickly, I'm going to get into just kind of some background on the floor area ratio. It's something that all residential development is required to adhere to, and determines the maximum allowable built square footage for a property based on lot size. So even though the zoning is special use, that isn't a factor necessarily for the floor area ratio. It is based entirely on the lot size. Not included in the FAR calculations are unenclosed spaces such as porches and patios. So the pool equipment area right now is unenclosed with a low wall. So the variance would be to enclose that space, hence applying it to the floor area ratio. So with 0.56 acres, this property is allowed 5,065 square feet of enclosed area, which includes both heated and unheated area. In addition, any portion of the building that's over 17 feet in height from existing grade is counted again towards the floor area ratio. For this application, there was an error in the calculation of the allowable floor area ratio on the application, which is the cause for the discrepancy in the numbers shown on the approved permit and the recalculation done for this variance, that's both of which are in your packet. The approved application had that the total built square footage was 5,086 out of an allowable 5,274, which left 188 square feet remaining. Upon recalculation based on the accurate lot size, 5,065 square feet is allowable and 5,254 square feet was built, including 168 square feet over 17 feet, putting the approved permit 189 square feet over the maximum floor area ratio for this property. As this was staff error not confirming the floor area ratio calculation, the plans are already approved and the house is currently under construction per the approved plans. Whether this variance is approved or not, the applicant will not be required to submit altered plans for the 189 square feet permitted over the floor area ratio. So for this variance application, only the additional square footage of the enclosed pool equipment storage area is considered. So the variance is for the area of the pool equipment room based on the accurate calculation of the floor area ratio. And so enclosing the pool equipment area will again count it towards the floor area ratio and put the total built square footage to 5,368, which is 114 more square feet than what was permitted. And overall, 303 square feet over the allowable floor area ratio. That's why the public notice has it as 303 square feet, because overall it is it would exceed the floor area ratio by 303 square feet. However, the application, this variance would only be for 114 square feet of the pool equipment storage area. That can be a little bit confusing, so I'm happy to answer questions later on. For the variance, for the 3 criteria that we go over regarding section 9.2.25 7A1, the variance is and is not contrary to the public interest. The floor area ratio is a requirement of all residential development that's intended to limit the size and mass of dwellings in the village to combat the trend of McMansions, which are just very large homes, and to help ensure undeveloped land on properties. The floor area ratio is a limit placed on all residential properties based on lot size, and smaller properties are allowed slightly more square footage relative to the lot size than larger properties. So the ratio is 20% of 1 acre, and then that ratio slightly increases for smaller properties and slightly decreases for larger properties. However, the village also received no comments in opposition prior to publishing of the meeting packet, and did receive signed support from the immediately adjacent neighbor most affected and closest to the pool equipment room, and other surrounding neighbors in support of the application. Regarding section 9.2.25 7A2, the variance does not meet a hardship criterion. The applicant references criteria 1, 2, and 3. However, they don't apply in this case. The physical factors of the land, such as the lot shape and the tree, do not affect the floor area ratio or the enclosure of the pool equipment room, since that would more affect the location of the pool equipment room, not the fact that it's enclosed or not. The applicant also references criteria 5 and 6. However, there are alternatives available to relieve the circumstances stated by the applicant, and the relief is not justifiable in accordance with the master plan. For criteria 5, the enclosure of the pool equipment room would grant exceedance of the floor area ratio only for the pool equipment room. And the applicant says that it would be more visually appealing to the neighbors if the area was enclosed. There are alternatives available, as fencing and plants can also provide visual buffers to neighbors. Installing fencing around the pool equipment area or planting trees or shrubs that can grow into a barrier are possible without the requested variance. Since the fencing would not be within the setbacks, it can also exceed 6 feet in height from grade. So the fence itself, as long as it does not actually connect the floor to the ceiling, can be as tall as from floor to ceiling, as long as it doesn't actually connect. The pool filter, pump, and heater may be placed low to the ground or on the ground, and could be covered by the low wall shown in the building plans. The outdoor yard equipment may not be covered by the low wall depending on the equipment itself, and the applicant states that the noise created by the pool equipment may disturb the neighbors. If that's the case, that noise must adhere to the noise ordinance, whether it's enclosed or unenclosed. For criteria 6, the variance is contrary to the master plan in the residential development section, as well as all variances by nature are contrary to the master plan, and that we're not enforcing the code. And in accordance with section 9.2.257A3, the use of the premises is not changing. Property is zoned to special use for residential use, and the pool equipment room is an accessory use to this. So with that, the department recommends denial of V-21-03 for variance from section 9.2.16E1 to allow for a total built square footage of 5,368 square feet on the property, 303 square feet exceeding the allowable square footage per the floor area ratio in the special use zone and the South Rio Grande character area, with the following findings. The variance is not in conformance with the goals and policies of the village master plan. It is and is not contrary to the public interest. Owing to special conditions, a little enforcement of this section will not result in unnecessary hardship, and the use of the premises is not changing. The application doesn't meet a hardship criterion, and no prior application for a variance has been submitted on this property in the prior 6 months. Therefore, the variance requested meets the requirements of section 9.2.25 E7A3 and C, but does not meet requirements section 9.2.25 E7A 1, 2, and B. Should the commission choose to approve the variance, the department recommends the following condition: that the variance granted allows for 303 square feet of built enclosed area, 189 square feet of which was permitted, and 114 square feet of which will enclose a previously unenclosed area. Public notice requirements have been met by publication in the Albuquerque Journal, Public notice was sent by mail to all neighbors within 300 feet of the property, and a public notice sign was posted, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Director Justice. Do we have any questions from the commission for Director Justice?
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
So Director Justice, just to make sure I heard you correctly, there is a common area that all these homes share, and that is not included in the FAR calculation. Is that correct?
Commissioner Benavides, commissioners, that is correct. The common open space area is a separate platted lot that is on the interior of this subdivision, kind of like a common park.
Okay, and is that typically, I mean, I've seen other developments with, with a large common area, and then the individual lot sizes are smaller. But is that typically what we do in the village then? Or do we make exceptions?
Commissioner Benavides, commissioners, that is not necessarily common in the village. At the time, there was a special use zone and special use permits that allowed for development like this. Basically, they're called planned residential developments, where in exchange for the common open space area, the lots will be smaller than 1 acre or whatever the underlying zoning is. And that is what happened in this case. So this was a development that was approved by the village specifically because basically in exchange for the smaller lot size, there's a common open space area. And of course, the village, one of our main priorities is open space. And so hence why this was allowed.
So who pays for the maintenance of that common area?
The homeowners association.
Okay. All right.
Do we have any other oh, go ahead, Commissioner Michaels.
Tiffany, it is approved for 254 feet. Is that correct? Because of the mistake in calculating the allowable area.
So the original application had that the remaining floor, the total floor area ratio was 5,274.
Yeah, 5,274.
It was permitted for 5,086 square feet because that is the building footprint, and so then that's how it fell underneath the floor area ratio that was calculated. It wasn't necessarily permitted for 5,274. That is the calculation that's used in reference to any building permits for that property for the floor area ratio. So if they were to try and build a shed in the future, that would have been the number. But upon recalculation, we realized that that was not actually the correct number.
All right, but then this 114 square foot addition, if it was approved, that would be 2%. And as Commissioner Benavides has said, we haven't taken open space into account at all, which was how this property was given special use zoning.
So I believe that is correct. I don't know the exact calculation, but I guess one thing to consider with the floor area ratio is that it does count towards enclosed square footage only. So, but you can still have porches and patios that are also built impermeable surface that doesn't count towards the floor area ratio. That's what this currently is. It is it's called the pool equipment room, but just based on our calculation of the floor area ratio, it is an unenclosed porch or patio. It's an outdoor area.
I have one other question. There's been no objection or there's actually been support from the other neighbors. Is that a correct statement?
Commissioner Michelson, commissioners, yes, that is correct. In your packet, you'll see that there is a signed statement from the neighbors that the applicant provided, and we haven't received any comments either for or in opposition to this application during the public notice period or up until this point.
Go ahead, Commissioner Gay.
JT, if you're done, Tiffany, could you walk us through how the dimensions, the square feet got off? Was it miscalculated on the plan, the building plan, or is it at the FAR point where it got off? I'm curious as to how it got. We referenced that it was a staff error, not confirming the FAR calculation. That does not mean that they made the calculation or they caused the calculation error. So can you just kind of briefly walk through that?
Commissioner Gay, commissioners. So for any building permit application, we ask that the applicant calculate their floor area ratio for their property. We have a table and calculation sheet on our website. It's adopted in the code, and it kind of details the steps on how to calculate that. Page 28 of your packet shows my calculation of that. I think the discrepancy with that is we ask for applicants to do that, and then we also ask for them to fill out our building permit application that lists the floor area ratio calculations and how their building fits underneath that. So on the application, it listed 5,274 square feet, and it was our error in not checking that calculation to make sure that that was correct. And I think part of the reason for that miscalculation, this is something that the applicant may be able to speak to, is that the contractor that ended up submitting the finalized plans was not the contractor that the homeowner originally worked with. So the new contractor was working with what the old contractor had given them. So I believe there was an assumption that they were working with the correct number.
Okay. So are you going to ask the homeowners to address that tonight?
Commissioner Gay, commissioners, yes, if they could address that, that would be helpful. I believe also if when they speak, if they don't address that, you all are welcome to ask them questions, and that could be one of the questions.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the commission for Director Justice? Okay, seeing none. Is the applicant present?
Yes, please stand by.
Okay, good evening. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Michelle Hernandez. I'm an attorney at the Module Sperling Law Firm. My home address is 530 El Dorado Drive, Northwest.
Thank you. Attorney Winter, would you please swear in Ms. Hernandez?
Ms. Hernandez, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And would you like to speak about your application, Ms. Hernandez?
Yes, briefly. Essentially, I just wanted to address the board and let them know that I do represent the Cita Bacas, Jerry and Ernie Cita Baca, who are also available for comment, as well as their contractor, Diego Ruiz, who can, I believe, address some of the technical questions that have been asked. My only comment would be that it is a very minor variance that they're asking for, and they're doing so in the interest of being a good future neighbor and to really contribute to the aesthetics of their neighborhood. And Mr. Ruiz can address the calculations, which I believe he has told us recently is actually only asking for a 93 square foot variance rather than the 114 square foot variance that was just mentioned. But again, I'm not the technical expert, and I would defer to Mr. Ruiz to answer those questions. and to the CETA BACAs who were available to answer any other questions with regard to their initial application. But again, my point is to just point out that it is a very minor variance that they're asking, and respectfully ask that it is approved, especially as is noted is that there has been no opposition noted with regard to the request. Thank you.
No.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of the application?
Yes, please stand by.
There we go.
Good evening. Please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, I'm Ernie Citabaca. My address is kind of blurry, but I'm at 2312 Calle de Real Northwest, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87104.
Thank you. Attorney Winter, would you please swear in Mr. Citabaca?
Mr. Citabaca, you already have your right hand raised. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please proceed if you'd like to speak to your application.
Well, yeah, so it's a long and sordid story, right? It takes a long time to develop plans when you're building a custom home in a very nice area. And this has been really probably seriously about a 2.5-year process, believe it or not. And so what happened, you bought the property, went through a builder, found another builder, that didn't work. We're trying to go through this, we're having a designer design the house. And then we finally found Diego, who is an architect builder, but we already had this house designed, unfortunately, because he's a very good designer, and we probably wouldn't be having this conversation had we not done that. But we were already so far along on these plans that we needed to go forward. And so you get to the process of going through the planning and zoning, and then all of a sudden you find out, the other contractor did not, I guess, submit plans from the designer, who I actually think should have been able to do it, that met the FAR requirements. So all of a sudden we're having to figure out the scramble to figure out what we need to do to reduce square footage and the footprint. And let me just say this, there's only 2 lots out of the 40 lots that aren't already built, right? So our lot and one other. Our house is probably going to be one of the smallest in the neighborhood. And it's certainly it's certainly, a dwarf in size of some of the large houses in that area, which somehow passed muster, or maybe they were before the FAR, including one that was recently built, which is just enormous. So, we're building this, and we're trying to figure out through Diego, who was doing a great job, and Tiffany was very helpful in trying to help us through all this stuff. She's very good, her and Ann, to try to help get this through. And so what we had to do is this pool equipment room. Well, it was actually going to be, there was another kind of room next to it. If you're looking at the plans, it was called the holiday storage room. That was actually going to be a little bigger, the holiday storage room. But in order to meet the FAR, we had to make the holiday storage room smaller, because that's totally enclosed, and then have the pool equipment room is not totally enclosed. So it's got a half wall. And so okay, that's how we got that approved. We made some other changes as well, but it's kind of hard to do it when you're in the 11th hour and you're trying to get things done. And so that seemed to be the sacrifice we're going to have to make. And then you get to the foundation stage, and you look at it and you go, my goodness, this is a small little area that is going to have a 4-foot wall. It's up against the master bedroom of our neighbor. I'm not adding any more square foot. I mean, that footprint's already there. It's going to already have a half wall. It's meant to house the pool equipment. And now it has a half wall, a 4-foot wall instead of a 10-foot wall where it connects and it can be completely quiet and unseen. And I'm going to just, when you look at it, and there's pictures in here, you kind of look at it, you go, we're not doing anything. We're not adding a tall other room. We're not making anything more than just kind of putting instead of a 4-foot wall, we're making it a 10-foot wall. I mean, it's just part of the house. And it's at the very end corner. And you go like, I told Diego, the builder, I said, man, we got to seek a variance because that just doesn't seem right. And then I went and talked to the neighbors, and I said, let me just show you this. And they all saw it. And I said, do you have any objection if we just, instead of a 4-foot wall, it's just a 10-foot wall? It's not adding, it's not living square feet. It's not going to be heated. It's next to the garage. It just seems silly in a way that we can't build it all the way up. Now, I know rules are rules, and I get that. But if you look at this and you go, this just doesn't make sense that we couldn't just build it all. The intention was never there at the beginning to say we're going to do that. But once we saw it, when I saw it, when the foundation was poured and I saw that, and I'm going, oh man, this is kind of crazy. And so then that's when I sought, I called planning and zoning. I said, what do I need to do to get a variance? And Tiffany said, it's going to be, black and white. You're past the FAR. And I said, yeah, but it just seems logical that somebody could just listen to the fact that I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just enclosing the room. That's all I'm doing. So I said, she goes, well, you can apply. And I said, okay, thank you. And so that's one of those things. To me, it's minor. I don't see how it would be major. All of the neighbors in the near us all agree. Nobody would ever notice that we did it. It's not, like I said, our house is going to be a beautiful house, but it's not by any means one of the largest houses there. It's by any means. It's not 2-story. We did build it to preserve the beautiful cottonwood. I don't know how old that cottonwood is there. It's the oldest, biggest cottonwood tree in the neighborhood. We did everything we could to preserve everything there. So far, we minimally cut the branches. We're doing everything we can to be a good neighbor in the neighborhood. And so I'm just asking for reasonableness for somebody to just say, if you were in my position, would you think that would be okay to just continue the stucco of that wall and build it up? It's not anything major, I believe. I get it on the FAR. It gets over of some square footage, but it doesn't give me any more heated square footage. It's not useful other than the fact I want to enclose it, pool area, equipment and room, and reduce the noise and anything associated with that. I guess that's what I have to say. And Diego could probably say that way better than me. But that's me as the owner.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anybody else lined up, Tiffany, to speak in favor of the application?
Yes, so there is Mr. Ruiz who's here. Does the commission have any questions for Mr. Sitabaca?
Please go ahead, Commissioner Benavides.
Yes, Mr. Sitabaca, this is Gil Benavides. And so I am looking at page 34, which shows the outline of the lot, and it shows the footprint, the floor plan of your home that's to be built. And so I'm trying to determine where this pool equipment room is. I think maybe I know. I think I could see the garage. Would you mind pointing that out to us? Or I don't know how we do it on Zoom, but.
So Commissioner Benavides, Mr. Sitabaca, if I could just jump in, I think I know where he's talking about. It's on the bottom, the south side of the property on the west side, the left side. You can see that there are, there's a big bottom room. That is the garage with 2 garage doors. And then to the left of that are 2 rooms attached to it. The one on the north of that is an enclosed room. And then beneath that is the pool equipment room.
Okay, wait a minute. So north. All right, let me see. I see where the cottonwood tree is. So I need to go to the opposite end where the cottonwood tree is. Is that correct? Okay. And then I see the 2 garage doors. Okay. And I see 2 rooms to the west of the garage. And it is the northernmost room. That's the pool equipment room. Is that what you
It's
said?
the southernmost.
Southernmost. And so, okay, so I see a door to that room, but that must be a gate currently if the walls don't go all the way up. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so so there would be 2 walls that would need to be extended up to the roof to enclose it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So one follow-up question. I mean, it's really kind of odd that that we have this where if it only goes 4 foot, it's not included in the FAR, but if you include it all the way, it is. Maybe there's some rationale. I don't quite understand that. There's 2 things pulling me in different directions. One is I sympathize with the neighbor. I know, I get it that the pool noise is low, but it's a hum and it can be annoying. My neighbor has a pool. And the other thing is I want to be consistent and we don't just want to grant variances to some people and say no to others, so, okay. I just want to make sure I understand where that is, and it's within the setback. There's still 10 feet, and I suspect that the neighbors has a similar setback of 10 feet. Okay, all right, that's all I have.
Do we have any other questions from the commission for Mr. Siedebacher? Okay, seeing none. I guess this would be the time to bring in anyone who would like to speak in favor of the application. Do we have anyone lined up, Tiffany?
Yes, I'll be bringing in Diego Ruiz.
Okay, please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Diego Ruiz with Diego Handcrafted Homes. Address is 8100 Wyoming Boulevard Northeast, Suite M4-511, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Attorney Winter, would you please swear in Mr. Ruiz?
Mr. Ruiz, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. I wanted what Mr. Siedebacher was talking about. I'm actually the 3rd contractor working on this project for whatever reasons. The 2nd contractor actually submitted plans, as he mentioned. There was a few minor revisions when we submitted them last year. Apparently the house was 5 feet too tall and it way exceeded the FAR. So we had to do some gymnastics and play with the roof pitches and reduce square footage and go back to the drawing board and just do some really creative things. So by the time we got everything, we got it to where only about a foot of the pitch only exceeded the 17 feet. And therefore by cutting out that pool equipment room. As Tiffany and Mrs. Justice had mentioned about the square footage, the actual square footage since the FAR was 5,274, after doing all the calculations and correcting the drawings, we were actually 188 square feet below the FAR, and then only 168 square feet was above the 17 feet, which was balanced out that. So we were actually, after everything was finished, even including the above 17 feet, we were 20 square feet below that. So if we're adding the 114 feet and we still had 20 feet left over, we're actually only asking for 94 square feet from the original, 303 to 114 down to 94. Also, as you'd mentioned, if you notice the location, it's behind the house, behind the garage. So from the street, you would barely even notice that it was even covered because it's well hidden from the street. And the other thing, Commissioner, I'm glad you mentioned, because I was going to bring that up. In consideration of the open space, which was the 2% that you guys had kind of roughly calculated, that was one of the square footage that was taken from that in order to compensate the balance. So there's like a lot of gray area there that really shouldn't make that much of a difference in that 94 square feet, as we respectfully asked for. But because of all that additional square footage there, it's very minute. The area that we would have been asking for. Any questions for me?
Do we have any questions from the commission for Mr. Ruiz? Go ahead, Commissioner Gay.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Ruiz. So you're the third contractor on it. Did you self-report this when you figured out that it was a problem?
No, well, when the height was a problem, obviously I worked with the homeowners and the other designer to correct the plans. The square footage, the FAR square footage was actually taken from the approved application back last year. So there was no reason for me to even question that the FAR was incorrect because it was already approved. So we went off of those numbers. That was our targeted plan. And so we based all our numbers based on the last year's approved contractor, the second contractor's numbers.
So if this was never supposed to be enclosed, why do they have a roof and ceiling framed over it? What was going to support that?
No. It was originally, it was enclosed. It was always enclosed. But when we submitted the plans, and it was the whole building was 5 feet too tall. It was at 22 feet instead of 17, just a little bit over. That's when we started trying to see, okay, we can lower the pitches, change the pitches, because they were originally 612 pitch. We lowered everything to 512, except for the great room, which was the tallest space. We dropped that down to 4.25 pitch per 12 inches, and to reduce the amount of square footage above the 17 feet. We couldn't lower the pitch anymore because it would just significantly affect the aesthetics of the home. And so the only place left to take square footage off was the pool equipment room. So that's where that was always enclosed from the beginning.
But the approved plan that we're looking at here only has a 4 foot tall wall. It was not shown to be up to the deck.
No, the previous one from the contractor, the previous contractor, it was always enclosed.
Well, the plan that I'm looking at that's approved on whenever it is, it still shows that it being a 4 foot tall wall with a gate, not a full wall with ceiling and roof structure over it. So it's kind of confusing.
Commissioner Gay,
Yep,
could I quickly kind of just explain? That is this is the revised plans that is included in your packet. This was the final revised plans that were approved. So this is after the revision to unenclose the pool equipment room. This does not show the different phases of the original plans.
So that was the third approved plan, second approved plan.
Correct. The other one was
Third different square foot number on it.
Correct. The other one was 2 years ago. My mistake.
Yeah. So I've heard three different numbers tonight about how much over the FAR this is. So I guess Tiffany, if you are okay with this, then, but it seems like the number just moves around a lot.
I can explain that. The 114 square feet that we're adding, which was that second number, we had a surplus of 20 square feet already that we were below the FAR. So we took that into consideration. So we take the 20 square feet from the 114, and that gives us the 94.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
No more questions.
Do we have any other questions from the commission for Mr. Ruiz? Okay, seeing none. Tiffany, do we have anyone else lined up to speak in favor of the application?
I'm not seeing any hands. However, if you would like to speak in favor of this application, please indicate using the raise your hand symbol.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition to the application?
Again, if you would like to speak in opposition, please indicate using the raise your hand button. Seeing none.
Okay, well, if the applicant would like to respond, well, I guess they have been responding the entire time. So I think I'm about to close the floor for comments and move on to the discussion of the application prior to a motion. Do we have any? Oh, go ahead.
CV, sorry to interrupt. I just would like to kind of clarify. I know the floor area ratio numbers that have been thrown around tonight have been a little bit confusing. So the original application that was approved are the numbers that Mr. Ruiz was talking about, 5,200. That was the incorrect floor area ratio calculation taken from the previous contractor. So based on that calculation and the remaining square footage that they had based on that, that is how he's talking about, you know, we had a 20 additional square feet, therefore the variance is only for 94 square feet. The difference between that number and the number that I was talking about with 114 plus 189 that is permitted over is based on the new calculation that was done for this application, like for the variance application. I'm not sure if that clarifies anything, but I'm happy to answer any questions based on the numbers or anything else from the commission.
Thank you, Director Justice. Go ahead, Commissioner Berenson.
Mike?
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Tiffany, it was brought up during the presentation that there are many other properties that well exceed the FAR. I would like to know if you have any knowledge of this.
Commissioner Berenson, commissioners, I'm not aware of something like that. So the applicant kind of mentioned a little bit of this, but so the difference with square footage for each property is that the floor area ratio is based on the square footage of that property. So some houses, if they're on a bigger property, will have more allowable floor area ratio than those that are on smaller properties. In addition, the floor area ratio was adopted back in 2007. So anything that was built before that was not subject to the floor area ratio.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other discussion or questions from the commission? Well, I'll just add that, you know, in looking at this, I can really sympathize with the lack of continuity in contractors. I know how much of a headache that can cause. At the same time, I'm struggling with this because I'm just not seeing the mechanism we can use to provide a variance through the code. If they don't meet any hardship criterion, I don't know what we can do. So for those reasons, I'd probably be moving in the direction of a denial, though reluctantly. So if we don't have any other questions or comments from the commission, do we have a motion?
So I guess maybe I would like to not do a motion just yet, if that's okay.
No, please, go ahead.
You know, I think that the dimensions of that pool equipment room, I don't know, maybe like are 10 by 11, and somebody might correct me, but what I would want to ask is, what is the actual footprint of the pool equipment? And what is the height of the pool equipment? You know, sometimes that stuff is only like 4 feet high or something like that. Can the applicant answer that question? Is that okay?
Director Justice, is there any issue with reopening the floor for discussion with the contractor?
Commissioner Benavides, commissioners, no. And any of the three who spoke, if you just would like to raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak on this, I will let you speak.
Please go ahead, Mr. Sitabaca. Looks like you're on mute still. Oh, there you go.
Well, the good news, bad news of building right now is it's kind of like the worst time to build on the planet. Your lumber prices have gone up, tripled. The pool builders, they're enjoying life right now because everybody's doing staycations. So it's very hard for me to say I have that ordered right now. So I had a pool in the last house. So we're going to build a pool in this house because my wife says so. And so we're going to do it. And I would say the filter was probably 4.5 feet, somewhere in that range. You have a 3-foot heater, then you have your pump, and you have all that other stuff. So it's somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't know if technology has changed. I've had a pool for 30 years, and I had bigger filters and then smaller filters and all that stuff. But I would imagine somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.5 feet. But like I said, the pool has not been ordered because it's going to take a while. So.
And the footprint of that equipment is probably not 10 by 11, right?
I would say it is not 10 by 11, but I'd say you want to be able to walk around it, right? You don't want to be everything right up against the wall because you have to tighten things. You got to replace things, and you got to do that. So even though that pool equipment, the last one I had probably was about 8 feet by 4 feet, somewhere in there, the pool equipment with the heater and the filter, at least 8 feet. I would say that because it does, you don't put I guess it's how you juxtaposition those things. But yeah, it takes up a good chunk of that.
And the wall is as currently designed as 4 foot tall. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And Tiffany, so the ceiling, would that mean the wall would need to go to 8 feet to get to the ceiling? It's attorney, I'm sorry, Mr. Sitabaca.
I think it is 8 foot, but I would have to ask Diego on that. I'm sorry. I bet it is 8 feet. Yes. I would imagine it's 8 feet, but I can't tell you that.
So then final question to Director Justice. So if I'm hearing things right, Mr. Sitabaca could raise the wall to 7.5 feet, just a half foot short of reaching the ceiling, and that would he would be okay with that? Is that correct? It would not be enclosed?
Commissioner Benavides, commissioners, technically yes, so long as it does not enclose from floor to ceiling, it would be considered unenclosed. The main concern, of course, that staff have is that the more you almost enclose a space, it's very easy to just enclose it anyways, kind of secretly a few years down the line. Just that that's kind of the main reason why we would prefer not to do that. However, again, technically you can build a fence even or a wall around it and make it as tall as you want since it's not in the setbacks. So the distance between the floor and ceiling and wall is not dictated in our code, so long as they are not all attaching.
Okay, okay, thanks. Thank you.
Do we have any more discussion or questions for?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So if there are no more questions for Mr. Sitabaca, Mr. Ruiz will be able to answer some of the other questions that he wasn't able to.
Please go ahead, Mr. Ruiz. Oh, looks like you're on mute, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity of letting me speak again. I wanted to go back to the two things. One is, I really like to do things right the first time and not kind of be sneaky and, oh, let's do it, let's get our permit, and then go back and do that. I wanted to go back to the point that you had mentioned about having a mechanism to approve it. And there is that, so I want to go back to the intent of the open space, that 2%, which is a gray area. If you were to take that into consideration, which was, some of the other perimeter homes, there's a little gray area there and it kind of overflows into that space. So the amount of square footage that we're asking for in comparison to the open space gray area really is not that significant. So that's why, that may be an element of means to be able to justify the approval because of that gray area.
So, Mr. Ruiz, can I go ahead and ask you a question? I know we kind of opened this back up, but are there other reasons besides what you have stated thus far that would indicate some type of hardship for not enclosing it? What comes to mind, Mr. Ruiz, is that having pool equipment open to like rain, weather can ruin the equipment. What about animals? If it's not enclosed, can animals get in? Are there other hardships that you know of that would kind of lay the foundation for giving us a reason for granting the variance?
Yeah, well, even the freezing of the equipment, typically we try to enclose that so it doesn't freeze, so they can use the spa or the pool during the winter. By not having that insulated, it minimizes the lifetime of the equipment and the time that they can use it. Another point that was brought up is that low hum. I have had to do some major mitigation many times with air conditioners and pool equipment just because that low frequency hum, even though it's not loud, which the pool equipment is loud, even though it may not exceed the requirements of the subdivision, it is very annoying and very hard to sleep, even during the day, whatever. So that is again another. We're trying to just be good neighbors here, and again, I don't think it's going to be seen. It's not like it's in the front of the house or we're exceeding, like Mr. Sitabaca said, any more livable space, any more footprint, or anything like that. So I'd like to really do this right the first time and not, take corners and be sneaky, because that's not the way that we do work. But again, I think that big one I'm sorry, I thought I got cut off. The big one of that gray area of that open space, I think far exceeds that 93, 94 square feet of allowable kind of reason to approve it.
And,
the intent of the law.
And I would ask this of Director Justice now, is that 2% gray area, that kind of falls outside of the net lot area that we use for calculating FAR in the village based on the code. Is that correct, or is that anywhere, does that hold water?
So the thing about, I guess, open space and lot size is that, so the floor area ratio is based on the size of the lot. There already is open space provided for like in the common open space area, but also every lot is required to have 60% permeability, and the floor area ratio already is about 20%. So there will always be, relatively speaking, 60% open space on a property, ideally, because it's meant to be non-permeable, or sorry, it is meant to be permeable. These lots were already subdivided smaller than the open space, so that I guess it's kind of a factor that is just it's applied to these smaller lots. They have the advantage of being next to the open space compared to the lots that are bigger. They're kind of on the outside ring of the homes, so they have the advantage of the open space kind of being their backyard. So it kind of balances out, I suppose.
Thank you, Director Justice. Do we have any more discussion or questions from the commission or for the applicant?
Not of the applicant, but of Director Justice, a follow-up to the open space, if that's allowed. You know, in my mind, if the village was maintaining the open space, that would be one thing, but it's being maintained by an association of those homeowners. What I don't know is how large that open space is, and if we were to proportion that open space by the different lot sizes, you know, what that would be. You know, would they then be like 1 acre lots if, you know, if we were to give everybody a certain percentage of credit for that? Do you have any idea of how big that space is, and if we were to give credit to those individual lots, what that would be?
So the open space is 4.4 acres, and the number of homes that is less than 1 acre, roughly, I suppose a half acre, is 17.
Okay.
So I don't believe that it would equal out to be 1 acre, 1/2 acre for each lot that is currently a half acre that's put towards the open space.
But it might be a 1/4 acre, right? Yeah, I mean, I hate to do math in public.
Yeah.
How many homes did you say were in the around the open space?
So just looking at the map, there appears to be 17 homes that are on the inner ring of the neighborhood that are, I guess, zoned special use and less than 1 acre.
Okay.
Maybe a 1/4 acre.
Commissioner Christensen, I see you raising your hand.
Yeah, my question is what the other 15 houses that have been built, their FAR calculation was based as the FAR calculation for this home. They didn't include the open space or anything like that. So that's correct. Okay.
Okay, well, I will close the floor for comments if there's no further discussion. And is there any discussion on the application prior to a motion? Anything else? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion?
Commissioner Seavey?
Go ahead, Commissioner Gay.
Yeah, I lost my internet for about 5 minutes. I just logged back in. Can you just tell me where we are in the process?
We just brought Mr. Sitabaca and Mr. Ruiz back on to ask them some further questions. We went over a possible avenue of calculating the FAR based on the shared open space, but determined that the other homes are not doing so. And that's about where it was left off.
Okay, thank you.
And the floor is closed now, and we are discussing prior to a motion, or if there is a motion, please make one.
I'd like to move for approval of the 2% or 98 feet or 114% variance, which is just the addition of the wall up to the, enclosing it. And I would add the items that Tiffany had suggested be included if approval was granted.
Commissioner Seavey, I didn't hear all of the items that were added, but I would second JT's move that we do approve this if we can find a way to make the approval legally.
Okay. Commissioner Michelson has moved to approve variance 21-03 with the added condition that is spelled out in the meeting packet. I'll just read it for the record. The variance granted allows for 303 square feet of built enclosed area, 189 square feet of which was permitted, and 114 square feet of which will enclose a previously unenclosed area. With that, we'll move on to a roll call vote. Commissioner Christensen,
No.
Commissioner Benavides,
Yes.
Commissioner Gay,
Yes.
Commissioner Seavey, no. Commissioner Berenson,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelson,
Yes,
Commissioner Albert.
Yes.
The motion carries with 5 yes, and 2 no. Let the record show that the public hearing item 4A, the request by Ernie and Gary Citabaca for variance, is formally closed. And thank you everyone for attending and participating in that. We'll move on now to item 4B, variance 21-04, a request by Blake's Lotaburger for a variance from 9.2.13 E5E, prohibited uses in the Gateway District Zone, drive-through facilities for any business establishment to allow for a drive-through facility for a restaurant in the Gateway District Zone in the 4th Street character area. The property is located at 8440 4th Street Northwest and is legally known as Tract 142A1, as shown on map number 24 of the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District. Projected section 16, Township 11 North, Range 3 East, NMPM, Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, New Mexico. The property contains 1.0 acre more or less. Do we have any commissioners who will recuse themselves from this item? Seeing none. Attorney Winter, would you please swear in Director Tiffany Justice?
She's previously been sworn in.
Oh, correct. We'll move on. She doesn't need to be double sworn. Director Justice, may we have the planning report?
Yes. So commissioners, the applicant desires to build a new restaurant with walk-in and drive-through services to replace the existing restaurant that currently only has walk-in service. This drive-through is a new component added to remodels of locations of this chain restaurant, and it's been proposed for multiple locations aside from just this one. So whether the variance is approved or not, the proposed development will be required to go through the site development plan process prior to approval of building permits. Whether or not this variance is approved, it's likely that the application will come before you again for development. The properties to the north, south, and east are zoned Gateway District, and the property to the west is zoned C1. They're all in the 4th Street character area. So the 3 main factors for the variance in terms of section 9.2.25 7A1, the variance is and is not contrary to the public interest. So this zone is intended to recognize the importance of and encourage alternative modes of transportation, such as walking and transit, over personal vehicles. A drive-through is for personal vehicles and is a prohibited use in this zone. However, drive-through facilities are conditional uses in the C1 and VC zones, VC standing for Village Center, C1 standing for commercial. And the VC zone's intent is similar to the Gateway District in that it intends to encourage pedestrian activity. A drive-through could be allowed in this zone, even though the intent is for pedestrian activity. In general, drive-throughs can be more dangerous for pedestrians by creating driveways to cross and therefore more potential points for accidents. For those on wheels, such as bicycles and wheelchairs, the slant of a driveway is also a hindrance. In this case, the proposed site plan does account for pedestrian access to the building from the north end with a crosswalk identified. The slant of the driveway can be resolved through design of the driveways that allows for a continuous flat surface, similar to the 4th Street improvement project. The two driveways proposed align with the existing entrances and would be less driveway than there currently is right now, since it's currently just a contiguous driveway along both sides. The village code is intended to protect the health, safety, and welfare of village residents and visitors to the village. And COVID-19 has identified the importance of less contact between employees and customers in the food service industry. And drive-throughs are an alternative that allows service with reduced exposure between employees and customers. However, there are alternatives to drive-throughs that are in keeping with the pedestrian intent of the Gateway District Zone, while providing health-conscious options such as curbside pickup or a walk-up window. The village received no comments in favor or in opposition to this item prior to publishing of the meeting packet. In accordance with section 9.2.25782, the variance meets hardship criteria 5 and 6. The applicant references criterion number 4. However, the circumstance of the COVID-19 health pandemic doesn't create a condition under which no reasonable use of the land can be made without the requested variance, because there are alternative permissive and conditional uses available for the property without the variance. And the walk-in aspect of the restaurant would still be allowed. For criteria number 5, the drive-through would supplement, not substitute, the in-person aspect of the restaurant, and the variance would only, of course, be for the use of the drive-through. However, there are alternatives to the drive-through, as I mentioned, curbside pickup and a walk-up window that would address the health circumstances. And criteria number 6, as I mentioned before, all variances they are contrary to the master plan in that they are not enforcing the village's zoning ordinances. However, the variance is also supported in the master plan in the economic development section. And in this case specifically, it is also contrary in the economic development section, depending, of course, on which goal, which objective, which action step you look at. So it is both in support and not supported by the master plan. And the transportation section is also contrary for this application. In conformance with section 9.2.25783, the use of the premises is not changing. Adding a drive-through to the existing food service establishment doesn't change the use of the premises. And so with that, the department does recommend denial of V-21-04 for a variance from section 9.2.13 E5E, prohibited uses in the Gateway District Zone, drive-through facilities for any business establishment, to allow for a drive-through facility for a restaurant in the GD zone in the 4th Street character area with the following findings: that the variance is and is not in conformance with the goals and policies of the master plan. It is and is not contrary to the public interest. Owing to special conditions, literal enforcement of this section will result in unnecessary hardship, the criteria of which being identified as number 5 and 6. And the use of the premises actually is not changing. That was a typo on my end. And no prior application for a variance has been submitted on this property in the prior 6 months. So therefore, the variance request meets the requirements of section 9.2.25 E7A 2 and 3, B and C, but it doesn't meet 9.2.25 E7A 1, specifically being that the variance is and is not contrary to the public interest. If the commission approves the variance, the department recommends the following conditions, and the findings would be revised to find that the application meets all requirements for approval. The conditions are that a traffic impact study is required as part of the site development plan submittal, in particular noting that the impact of the location of ingress and egress on 4th Street and El Pueblo Road, the impact of the intersection of 4th and El Pueblo, and the impact on 4th Street if overflow from the drive-through spilled onto the street. The proposed ingress egress driveways are designed following the 4th Street project design specifications with raised concrete for continuous pedestrian access, and the drive-through facility shall follow the requirements of the City of Albuquerque Integrated Development Ordinance, Section 4-3 F4A. And public notice requirements for this application have been met by publication in the Albuquerque Journal. Notice was sent to all neighbors within 300 feet of the property, and a public notice sign was posted. I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Director Justice. Do we have any questions from the commission? Commissioner Gay, please go ahead.
Tiffany, could you tell me what the City of Albuquerque Integrated Development Ordinance 4-3 F4A is? What does it mean?
So that section is the City of Albuquerque's requirements for a drive-through facility. If there is any drive-through facility in the City of Albuquerque, they follow those requirements. Mainly, they are based on how many cars can, the capacity of the facility kind of in the loading area, I guess, assuming that it's not overflowing, it needs to accommodate a certain number of cars on its own. So I guess basically focused on the traffic layout and the circulation and making sure that it won't easily overflow onto the neighboring streets. I believe that the applicant would be probably more qualified to answer that question if they have developed any drive-throughs in the City of Albuquerque.
Is that property, this is Bernalillo County and the Village of Los Ranchos. It's not, what's the relevance of the City of Albuquerque's rule then?
So Commissioner Gay, commissioners, the reason for this is that the village doesn't have any requirements for drive-throughs. So we don't have any criteria for how many vehicles need to be accommodated on the property before it overflows. And I don't believe that Bernalillo County does either. However, I could be wrong on that. So in this case, I'm referencing the City of Albuquerque's ordinances in order to give, I guess, a proper baseline for if this application were approved, what the requirements would be for its development.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Director Justice? Commissioner Benavides?
Okay, so Director Justice, this is in the gateway zone, and does that mean that in the future that that portion of 4th Street could be reduced to 2 lanes, 1 lane each way? Do we know that?
Commissioner Benavides, commissioners, yes. So the intent for the 4th Street project is to continue that road diet lane reduction to 1 lane in either direction going north and south and 1 center turn lane. So in the future, the 4th Street side of this property will be 3 lanes with a sidewalk.
3 lanes mean a center turn lane.
Yes, 1 lane in either direction plus a center turn lane.
Okay. And how about El Pueblo? It's already narrowed to 1 lane there. Are there any future plans for what that's going to look like?
There are currently no future plans for development, either for development on El Pueblo Road. And you are correct, right now that section is currently 1 lane in either direction.
In either direction, okay. Thank you.
I guess I do have a question for Director Justice. Under the conditions, if we were to approve this, would that is there any language here? Is there any way to have that traffic impact study take into account the proposed improvements along 4th Street? Or is that a discussion that you had previously?
Commissioner Seavey, commissioners, no, that's not a discussion I've had previously with the applicant. That is something that would need to be considered in future development. The recommendation right now is to have the designed following the 4th Street project with the raised concrete as one of the conditions. However, that isn't one of the requirements that we have in our ordinances. And when the village moves northward, if there isn't already a sidewalk along that property, we would be installing the sidewalk. But that's a good question, and something that we can definitely talk with the applicant when they're speaking, and also something that can be addressed also in the site development plan process.
Thank you, Director Justice. Do we have any other questions before we bring on the applicant? Okay, seeing none, is the applicant present?
Yes, please stand by.
Good evening. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
Ross Brown, 8616 Monitor Drive, Northeast, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87109.
Attorney Winter, would you please swear in Mr. Brown? Oh, you appear to be on mute, Attorney Winter.
I am, thank you. Mr. Brown, could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Would you like to speak about your application, Mr.
I
Brown?
would. So my name is Ross Brown. I appreciate the time this evening with you. I am the Director of Facilities and Development for Blake Slaughterburger here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We are a local chain that's been around for 65 plus years, working in the New Mexico market primarily with the locations in Tucson and in the El Paso markets. We currently have over 70 plus stores. Most of these are in the Albuquerque market, which is 28 of those locations. The store that we are talking about is our El Pueblo store number 61 store that has been around in the El Pueblo market for over 40 years currently. And our goal here is to expand into a drive-through. So the plans and designs that we're looking at is we currently have the property that is right next to our this current store that's there. And we would build on that property, which is further east to the 4th Street side, build a brand new sit down and drive-through restaurant to take care of our customers in the community of the village. Very similar to what we have done in the village of Los Lunas. We are currently building a brand new location in the village of Los Lunas, just exactly footprint like this one that we had. So we would love to continue to work in the El Pueblo and the community because we think that the community of Los Ranchos is great. We've been there forever. And our goal is to expand. Our goal is to better our customers' time, our customers' service. And by doing that with the drive-through and a walk-up, and basically, and this store right here would also have a pickup window that we would put in, because that's what we are putting in all our new stores now. We would, like to look at the design, the seating. We would like to look at the facing of this thing, the store, the lobby facing the 4th Street corridor, which we feel that's where the growth is, especially for the village and us, and keep it for our community and that community out of Los Ranchos area. When you guys are talking about the city ordinance, a lot of that city ordinance is stackability when a drive-through. So City of Albuquerque, we just built a brand new store on Coors and St. Joseph's in Albuquerque. That property was basically under that ordinance of Albuquerque that says that you cannot have more than 8 stack in your drive-through. So basically you cannot stack to your streets. So how we build our buildings and how we build our drive-through is those stacks are basically almost double that size. So you'll have a stack on the beginning, stack at the middle, and a stack at the end, so that it never hits the major streets, and that would be El Pueblo and 4th Street areas on there. So our goal is to continue with the community, continue to grow, continue to build our beautiful Blake's Burgers that are coming around in the city of Albuquerque. The main reason we're doing this is, as you can see, the El Pueblo location is very old, should we say, 40 plus years. It is a staple, as it was a staple with the Village of Los Lunas. But we feel that the newer models will benefit our guests and the community, and it'll make the community look a lot more better for us and them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. Do we have any questions from the commission for the applicant? Go ahead, Commissioner Benavides.
Yeah, so Mr. Brown, I'm sure you understand our concern if it's just one lane on 4th Street, and if the queue got really long and it was spilling into 4th Street, it basically blocked that entire intersection in the north direction. Now I'm looking at the let's see, drawing AS 101. It shows the footprint of the parking and the building, and it looks like it's a good length to get to the drive-up window. So you might be able to handle, I don't know, you probably calculated how many cars, and you talked about stack. So maybe that's a terminology that you should explain. But what can you do to ensure that we don't have cars spilling out on 4th Street, which means you're pretty busy, and you probably would like that. But can you answer that for me, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, a lot of it is mostly on our technology side. So prime example, I'll give you we barely went to Roswell last year. And we had a 16 stack on there. Day one of grand opening, and it was our first store in Roswell. We have never been in Roswell till recently. Day one of Roswell, we had over 40 vehicles stacked up, ready to go into that Blake's on grand opening day. So all of it happens in our technology. So we have tablets at order, just very similar to like Chick-fil-A. So you go into Chick-fil-A, you get your order on the new stores. They put it in. By the time you hit the window, you're out. And what happened with Roswell is those 40 cars that hit in there, we were out of there in 10 minutes, and that never hit the freeway, or it never hit what was the state road right there going through Roswell on there, which was 285. So we wanted to make sure that any kind of stack, any kind of issues or safety to the community is the number one thing for us. So technology, speed of service, and getting our guests out. So kind of give you a little thing. So every one of you might have gone to the Blake's in El Pueblo, right? Speed of service is probably not the best. And we admit that, and that's why we want to do this. With the new speed of service, we're also looking at different equipment that actually you're not waiting 15 minutes for your breakfast burrito, or you're not waiting 15 minutes for your Lottaburger. These are coming out right now at all our new stores. They're coming out anywhere from 6 to 7 minutes on everything. Burritos are coming out 3 to 4 minutes. So our turns on these orders are coming through. The other part of our technology is we have actually moved from a call-in service to what we call an AI service, which everything is now basically through a computer. You order on a computer, it goes through it. By the time your system, when you get to the door or the pickup window or the walk-in, then your order's ready to go and you're out.
Well, I mean, I appreciate the fact that you're speeding up the service. I'm currently in California, and In-N-Out is all over the place over here, In-N-Out burgers. And maybe it's because of the pandemic, but they're spilling out into the busy streets, and they have the tablets, and they're moving the cars pretty fast. But, I mean, if business is really good, which I'm sure you would want for it to be good. I don't know how you can control the number of customers it might be pulling in.
Well, I think building this new store is going to control a lot. So if we look at the current El Pueblo design out there and we look at a busy Saturday morning, I'll be honest with you, those cars are already on 4th Street parking. And there's right there on the side of the thing. So it's why we want to shift this building where it's currently at east. So we're off of that 4th Street corridor. And that's what we're looking at, you know. So we have a lot of options here, and you're right, in and out is busy. We're busy, and that's why we're building new. We are extremely busy, but we also know that our guests and speed of service is the first priority, and we have to get these cars and these guests out.
You know, I mean, that location, let's see where you come, it looks like you can go either in or out on 4th Street.
Mhm.
And that intersection, I go to that Lotaburger quite often, by the way. But that intersection, you know, can be quite busy. And if you're trying to make a left-hand turn on 4th Street, and there's currently people trying to come in, it could be complicated to do that. Are there any options for you maybe go in on 4th Street and go out on El Pueblo, or is that just?
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that our designer, which is also on Becca Snyder, she could answer a lot more of that, but definitely we could go in on 4th Street and we could leave out of El Pueblo as a one-way. So you're never hitting 4th Street back. That is correct. We could definitely do that, you know, or we could do the opposite and say, hey, you want to go in on El Pueblo and come out El Pueblo? We could definitely do that and have 4th Street as a come around type of drive-through. There's tons of option on design, especially with the way we have this store getting set, because like I said, we're moving it over to the east. The current store that's going to be there is basically going to be the parking lot.
Yeah.
So we're kind of shifting it out so it's not hitting 4th Street, because we as our business, we see it already with 4th Street. We see how busy 4th Street is. El Pueblo, little different situation, right? But 4th Street does get really busy right there. So that's why our goal when we designed this store and asked for the variance, we wanted to shift it over. So we don't have that 4th Street, because it does affect our business also.
Okay. That's my question. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the commission for the applicant? I do have a quick question, Mr. Brown. So the language in the ordinance that describes the Gateway District Zone, there's language about fostering pedestrian activity. And I might just be jumping ahead here to site development plan mode, so sorry if I am, but I don't see any sidewalks on your site plan, apart from the circulation right around the building. And how have you addressed pedestrian connectivity in your other stores, and how do you intend to do it here in the Gateway zone, Gateway District?
Yeah, so I'll speak about what we just built on Coors and St. Joseph's. So that is a community zone. We are actually, our restaurant is literally to the, I'm trying here to think, the west of a residence wall and a bunch of homes. And so what we ended up doing is we did put sidewalks in that met from the residence side all the way to us with the crosswalk through us. And we even further out to the Verizon and the Panera side of things over there. So we actually went in above and beyond to do that on our side. You know, community is number one. And if you really look at a lot of our stores out there, besides some of the ones that are in the markets, majority of our stores are in community areas, you know, and we believed in that. And the Chancellors, when the Chancellors started this business over 65 years ago, that's what they believed in, is community. And our current ownership, the Rule family, is also the same way. It's all community. So to answer your question, for this store, we would definitely look at it, and Becca, our designer, could answer that a little bit more, but we would definitely could look at putting in sidewalks in, if we get this variance to put in sidewalks all the way around, that we need to. And we've done it with other community stores that we've had. We're doing it in Los Lunas. I'll be honest with you, we're doing it in Los Lunas.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. That does answer my question. If we don't have any further questions from the commission, I'll ask, is there anybody here who would like to speak in favor of the application? Do we have anybody lined up, Tiffany?
Yes, so Mr. Brown mentioned Becca Snyder, who is the designer. I guess not really necessarily in favor of the application, also an applicant.
Would you please state your full name and address for the record?
Becca Snyder, 2809 Plaza Rojo, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87507.
Attorney Winter, would you please swear in Ms. Snyder?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you all commissioners for having us today and listening to us. I just want to add a couple things to Ross's descriptions based on some of the questions that came up. First of all, the city of Albuquerque requirement that Tiffany referred to is in reference to stacking, meaning the amount of cars from the drive-through to the road. The city of Albuquerque requires 100 feet of stacking, which works out to be about 6 cars. And if you look at our site plan AS 101, we show the 6 cars, and then we have more than double of that back to 4th Street. So we are above and beyond those requirements, which is part of the reason, as Ross mentioned, that we moved the building back away from the street. So there is more stacking. In terms of pedestrians, Ross mentioned that they would like to add a walk-up window to the store, and on that sidewalk to the west, also outdoor patio, those types of things. And we are open to adding a sidewalk from 4th Street. We'd have to work out how that would work, and raised paths as well, if that makes more sense and is more pedestrian friendly. Instead of striping the access from El Pueblo, we could do a raised sidewalk to slow down those driveways. The other question in terms of stacking, we also are open to changing the ingress from 4th Street to a one-way only. I think that still works as a site plan, and then you can go out on the El Pueblo Road. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Do we have any questions from the commission for this other applicant? Seeing none. Do we have, Commissioner Gay, please go ahead.
So for both of you who just spoke, so it's pretty hard for us to hear that you will do this and you may do that. It's pretty much why we have traffic surveys done before we design roads. And just the fact that you say you are open to it doesn't guarantee any of that. I think that in general, you know, we all kind of love that Lotta Burger, and I was all for this until I heard the guy say they're going to make it better. I kind of like going over there and wasting time. But I know a traffic survey, engineering survey costs money, and I get all that, but there's a lot of feel-good stuff and what you guys just said about what you may do, could do, may do a sidewalk, may do a, you know, in one, out the other, but all that again is going to be predicated on the traffic survey, and whatever engineer you use is going to have to get all that approved. So what's the likelihood of Blake's corporation addressing some of these problems before we actually commit. I know just getting a variance is not a commitment for you to build, but still we hear this sometimes before, that it's really easy for people to feel that they understand what they're going to get in a street or intersection, but look how long it took to build the roundabout down on Candelaria and Rio Grande. It took years and years because there was fighting and lots of surveys and all that. So I'm more concerned that there's a lot of things that could be done. I'd probably like to hear a little more about what will be done, or what the promises that could be made, knowing what we know now about that street, about both of those streets, about the future of the 4th Street phase 2, how you guys can, coordinate that into your design of stacking. And I agree with Gil that it's if that 4th Street goes down to 2 lanes, it's going to, there's a lot of traffic on that road, not Denver amount or California amount, but still for us. And then it's a pretty bad, you go from there up over the Paseo Bridge or whatever we call that thing. So it concerns me that we hear things and the residents think that this is what they're going to get, and then by the time the surveys are done and the traffic engineering is done, we come up with something totally different. So I know you can't answer that, but maybe you can just speak to it a little bit of your experience of what you have done in other projects that can help allay some of those concerns of residents.
Sure. Before I start my answer, Tiffany, could you explain to me the process from this point? I know that we'll probably end up before this commission again, and how that works with changes and things.
Yes. So, Ms. Snyder, commissioners, whether or not the variance is approved, in order to develop this property, they would need to go through the site development plan process. So it include a sketch plan process, which the commission would just review the concept, primarily the design, and possibly in this case, the circulation of the property, before we start officially asking for all of the submittals that we usually require: landscaping plan, utilities plan, that kind of thing. The sketch plan is kind of a yay or nay on the concept, at least, or at least to give you a preliminary idea of that. The preliminary approval is when we would require kind of drafts of all of the plans, including utilities, landscaping, parking, and possibly in this case, a traffic impact study. We could also require the traffic impact study to be done for the sketch plat meeting. And then the last meeting would be the final approval, hypothetically, at the Board of Trustees. After that, you could apply for building permits and develop the property.
Thank you, Tiffany. So my understanding with that process is that you kind of have some safeguards in place with how this works, and that we can get through this step and not get through the next step, as depending on what we propose. In the past, many of our plans have stayed very consistent throughout, and I think that the plan that we have right now has more than adequate stacking based on code and the previous buildings that we've done. So we have done traffic impact studies for other projects, our civil engineer, obviously, that we can have them do before we do for the sketch plat meeting, so that it's earlier in the process. I think that makes sense based on your concerns. So I think that we can revisit that in the sketch plat. And I have another question in how this works with you guys, in that is it possible for you to put a stipulation on the, on your approval or rejection, on approval, in that you say that works as long as the traffic impact study comes back as such?
So to answer your question, yes, the commission can put conditions on the approval, and those conditions can be pretty much anything. It could include a condition that you have to have a traffic impact study at the sketch plat meeting. It can also include that you need to have certain results from the traffic impact study in order to proceed. The commission can include any and all conditions at this point.
Okay, do we have any further questions for Ms. Snyder while she's present? Okay, seeing none. Tiffany, do we have anyone else lined up to speak to the application in favor?
Commissioners, we do not have anyone who is signed up to speak, and I do not see anybody indicating that they would like to. They're not indicating that they're raising their hand and would like to speak.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just ask again, is there anybody present who would like to speak in opposition to the application? And if so, please raise your hand. It looks like none. Would the applicant like to add anything further at this point? And if not, I'll go ahead and close the floor for comments and ask, is there any discussion on the application prior to a motion from the commission?
Yeah.
Please go ahead, Commissioner Benavides.
You know, I think I'm probably leaning towards where Dan Gay is in that I feel like I don't have quite enough information yet, but at the same time, I don't want to deny the application. I'm thinking of how we put conditions. You know, I don't know. This is a little complicated. You know, there might be several options. Like, you know, I mentioned turning right on, exiting the drive-through on El Pueblo, but turning left on El Pueblo is going to be a headache as well. You know, I mean, and then if we limit it to turning right is that, you know, is that acceptable? I don't know. I feel like I get it that there are other opportunities to approve or deny after this, but sometimes these things get momentum going and things get lost. So I'm struggling to how we apply conditions, and maybe I'm overdoing it with the conditions because I don't know what the traffic's going to be like, right? That's my 2 cents for now. Maybe somebody can help me out.
If we go to page 41 of the packet, there are 3 conditions that were listed that seem to address that. You know, requiring a traffic impact study would be telling. And, you know, do we need to add anything to that language, do you think?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Do we need to add anything to it? Yeah. I mean, maybe we, you know, I guess we could defer as well and ask for more information. That may be an option as well.
Go ahead, Commissioner Gay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was muted there. My concern is how is this going to integrate with the 4th Street project, and I don't know how far along we are with the design of that 4th Street project. I'm sure it's not anywhere close to this, but maybe Tiffany could tell us how that could be integrated so we don't have, you know, the idea that we have sidewalks actually going somewhere. We don't have any other sidewalks within a mile of that part of 4th Street. So how would those tie together? Or how could you see from the village's point of view, how could you see these two designs, talking to each other at a fairly reasonable rate and not, working in a vacuum with each other? So could you tell me what you think about that, Director Justice?
Yes, Commissioner Gay, commissioners. So there's, I guess, there's a few different things we can do, slice and dice the traffic impact study. There are other conditions that we can include to this approval. We can say that the design has to integrate the 4th Street project. We can say that the traffic impact study has to account for a road diet to one lane in either direction with a center turn lane, so that we can make sure that the traffic impact study actually would accommodate the future use rather than the current use, which has 2 lanes. At this point, you are correct, Commissioner Gay, that we do not have the designs of that section of 4th Street done yet. At this point, we do know that there will be 3 lanes, and we will be trying to incorporate sidewalks along all of that. So that is kind of a given, and it's likely that the design aspect of it will follow what there currently is. But at this point, the applicant, if they were to include sidewalks, they would need to coordinate with the 4th Street project manager. And that could also be a condition of approval, that they do coordinate with the 4th Street project manager and possibly get their official approval on, or at least review on the traffic impact study.
Go ahead, Commissioner Michelson.
So it seems to me that the main reason there may be some concern about the drive-through is because of the traffic, not for any other reason, because almost every other store like Lottaburger, McDonald's, or what has drive-through, and I hope the pandemic doesn't continue, but I think we're going to be more used to doing that than we were in the past. So I see that as a plus, but I also see that concern about the traffic on 4th Street, as well as El Pueblo, is a issue that should be thought through before the final design is finished.
And I'm just wondering if we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. This is a variance to allow for a drive-through, and we're kind of diving into the weeds, that we'd be reviewing this later. At the same time, I think including a 4th condition to the 3 that are already listed, stating something like the design shall be coordinated with future 4th Street improvements and subject to the review of the 4th Street project manager. I don't see how that would hurt, and that would kind of help show our intent to mesh with the 4th Street proposed improvements.
I think that's already in there, Drew, on number 2, generally.
Commissioner Seavey, Commissioner Gay, commissioners, I think a 4th condition that would address what Commissioner Seavey just spoke about would actually be more general than condition number 2. Condition number 2 was primarily on the raised sidewalk aspect of the proposed project, not necessarily its entire integration into 4th Street. And I agree with Commissioner Seavey in that technically the application is for a variance to allow the use of the drive-through. The design would be a later aspect. I guess, is there concern about the use of the drive-through on its own without specifically looking at the impact on the 2 immediate streets? And if there is, I think it's worth discussing. And if there isn't, then I agree that we can keep talking about the design impacts. I think at this point, we can also amend condition number 1 to say that the traffic impact study must be completed by the sketch plat meeting, rather than just the site development plan process, to specifically say that the next time that we would see them, we would see the traffic impact study.
Director Justice, I think there's a lot of merit to changing the first condition to state that, to ask for the traffic impact study to be provided before the sketch plat review.
I'd like to ask a question of Director Justice, if that's okay. Let's assume that the facility was built with a the restaurant was built with a drive-through, and it was approved, and it was built, and then the worst case scenario happens. Now the traffic is backed up, and the stack is beyond what is acceptable, and in fact is in violation of what Albuquerque considers acceptable. Do we have any recourse as a village to enforce anything? How do we fix that?
Commissioner Benavides, commissioners, to be completely honest, I'm not sure that we would have recourse because the stacking requirements for the city of Albuquerque, as the applicants mentioned, the current design already pretty much is double what their requirements are. So if they were to proceed and even with this current design, double what the city of Albuquerque has, if they happened to overflow onto 4th Street, that would be, I guess, out of their control and technically in compliance with what they proposed.
Okay.
And I just, oh, go ahead. Commissioner Gay, were you speaking?
No.
Just to add to this, you know, the having a drive-through in the Gateway District, you know, it's listed as a not permissive use. So I just wanted to know if anybody had any comments on that. It was just kind of the direct issue and what precipitated this variance. Any thoughts from the commissioners on that?
The answer, I think the simple answer to your question is no. So it is like you say, is contrary to what we're considering a permissive use. That part doesn't bother me. It maybe does in a sense in that it's a variance, right? And maybe it reflects on what other people might ask for. But the issue for me is just the stack up flowing into 4th Street. That's the main thing.
Commissioner Michelson, please go ahead.
If you go towards town on 4th Street, you'll see a number of drive-throughs. Unfortunately, none of which are in the village. It's just on the other side. And I haven't seen a great amount of stack up stopping the traffic there. So I think one that drive-throughs for this type of a business is, I can't say a standard, but it's look like it's almost should be there every time. And number 2, the data that I can see on 4th Street doesn't say there's going to be a huge amount of stack up. Making it one way may be something that should be taken into account. I want their planners to do some study on it and come back and say, yes, that's a good idea, we accept it, or gee, we're not sure that it is. I'm not sure I could make that decision based on the data that I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Michelson. And I think that further reinforces, you know, changing condition 1 to ask for that traffic impact study early on by the sketch plat review, because we could then identify those issues early on. Commissioner Christensen, please go ahead.
I just want to go back, you guys, and I'm just, when I read what the Gateway District zone, the purpose of, and I feel like when it states it is to encourage the development of transit supportive mixed use neighborhood that fosters pedestrian activity and a sense of community. This zone is intended to recognize the importance and encourage alternative modes of transportation, walking and transit to personal vehicles. A drive-through is for personal vehicles and is a prohibited use in this zone. I just feel that what we've talked about, what we're trying to do in the gateway zone, is that we're getting away from that by allowing a drive-in, a drive-through. I know that the Gateway District, it's still in planning. We have the apartments, we're working on the transit, and then we're putting a drive-through restaurant, which to me kind of negates what we're trying to develop in the Gateway District. And that's just my opinion. But I'm trying to look at when we were going through the master plans and things like that, and we're setting up what neighborhoods were. And I feel that in all honesty, that we're getting away by doing that. And that's just my opinion. And I just want to state that for the record.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any further discussion or Commissioner Gay, please?
I would like to agree. I agree with Karen. When we were on the master plan committee, the 25 master plan committee, we held a lot of open meetings for the public, and every single time we had it seemed, if I remember right, every time we had a discussion about an east-west connector street from Rio Grande to 2nd Street, we had a lot of public input on concerns about speeding and traffic and not in my neighborhood. And so I just think we need to remember that what Karen said, the village has designated this already as a district that is, it's already been designated at different criteria. I would not vote against a drive up at all. I think it's probably a great idea. And I think keeping Blake's in Los Ranchos on El Pueblo is a really good idea. But I am concerned that what was just said is that it all sounds good now, and then fast forward a year or two and people didn't feel that they got to have their say about traffic and congestion and so on and so forth. And I do, remember that these east-west connector streets are pretty hot. So it's not just 4th Street that people are concerned about. Is probably more so the east-west streets. So I'm not proposing anything. I'm not saying I would not vote for this. I would just like to remind people that in the master plan process, which was a whole year of open meetings and discussions and reading data, that this was a real big concern to a lot of our residents. And I think we just need to kind of put that up there. It's great to, to say you can change a lane here. I've built a number of roads and roundabouts and, worked on bridges in my career. So I understand traffic control and engineering. I just need, put it out there. We should be aware that these all sound great until the street gets striped, and then the residents of the village of Los Ranchos, who might or might not have been paying much attention to this, would let us know, what they think about it. I'm actually surprised we didn't have any public comment on this. I don't know if that's apathy or whether it's just people didn't see this as being a potential traffic control issue in their village, but I predicted that we would have a lot of people, residents discussing this pro or con, so surprised that we don't. So I'll let it go at that. I'm not trying to make a statement or change anybody's mind. I'm just trying to remind people that we do have a lot of data in our master plan that, although it does support business and, you know, there's a whole business economic impact of this, and there's also the impact of people that have to put up with this kind of traffic on a fairly, you know, these are not very good roads to begin with. And that's what we love about the village, or that's what I love about the village. But they're not going to get much better if we, you know, we don't pay attention to it as well. So that's it.
Commissioner Michelson?
Just add one other thing. By purchasing the additional property that they did, they've at least doubled the number of cars that can be put on that property. So I think that does reduce somewhat the chance of the stack up or on Fourth. It doesn't eliminate it completely, but I think it's reduced. And as I said before, most businesses like this do have a drive-through, and it's been there 40 years. Thank you.
Commissioner Michelson, commissioners, if I could just really quickly, I do not believe that they purchased additional property on the site plan. This is actually just the one parcel that currently exists. The existing building just happens to be kind of smack dab in the middle of it.
Thank you, Director Justice. Commissioner Christensen?
I stand corrected. Sorry. Thank you.
And I just want to reiterate again that the current ordinance doesn't allow for drive-throughs in this neighborhood, this district zone.
Well, if we don't have further comments, do we have a motion? Well, I will move to approve variance 21-04 with the following conditions. A traffic impact study is required as a part of the site development plan submittal. Additionally, it will be submitted before the sketch plat review. In particular, noting the impact of location of ingress and egress on 4th Street and El Pueblo Road, impact on the intersection of 4th and El Pueblo, and impact of 4th Street if overflow from drive-through is spilled onto the street. Second condition, proposed ingress, egress driveways are designed following the 4th Street project design specifications and will be subject to review by the 4th Street project manager. Third condition, the drive-through facility shall follow the requirements of the City of Albuquerque Integrated Development Ordinance IDO 4-3F4A.
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Barrington has seconded. We'll move on to a roll call vote. Commissioner Christensen. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me read this. Commissioner Seavey has moved to approve variance 21-04 with the conditions as listed. Commissioner Barrington has seconded the motion. And now we'll move on to a roll call vote. Commissioner Christensen.
No.
Commissioner Benavides.
Yes.
Commissioner Gay.
Nay.
Commissioner Seavey. Yes. Commissioner Barrington.
Yes.
Commissioner Michelson.
Yes.
Commissioner Albert.
No.
The motion carries with 4 votes yes, 3 votes nay. Let the record show that the public hearing, item 4B, the request by Blake Slaughterberger for a variance is formally closed. We'll now move on to old business, item 5. There is no old business. Under item 6, new business, there is no new business. Item 7, reports, the planning department report. Director Justice, may we have the planning department report?
Yes, commissioners. So Jennifer Schilling, our administrative assistant, sorry, not administrative assistant, planning and zoning coordinator and records information manager, is moving forward with Kiko, our IT specialist, on the design of the new website that is still in the works. She created a database for magazine advertisers for improved record management. Late notices were sent to businesses who haven't renewed, and building permits, parcel permits, and work on the magazine continues as usual. Keen Heinzelman, our code enforcement officer and public facilities manager, is patrolling the village and working with property owners to bring their properties into compliance, as well as processing excavation and barricade permits. I am working on film permits and zoning permits that don't come to the commission, such as zone certification letters and minor subdivisions. So the changes to the variance language are before the board this month for advertisement. So thank you to the variance subcommittee and the commission for your work, input, and review of these revisions. If approved for advertisement, it's going to be on the agenda for May approval by the board. And then in the meantime, variance applications do still have the current language. All of my reports will still will have the language that is adopted at the time. So you don't need to be aware of that. But there may be a bit of a transition period between May and June if they are approved, since we have such a long lead time for applications. They might have submitted their application under the old language after the new language was adopted. And then a small revision to the animal control ordinance was advertised at the March Board of Trustees meeting for approval at this month's meeting. This revision will make the animal control section and nuisances section consistent regarding noise created by livestock. And so at this point, the nuisances section exempts noise from livestock, but the animal control ordinance technically does not. So right now we're reconciling them to allow noise from livestock to be exempt as a nuisance. And the film page on the village's website has been updated with the new policy and permitting documents. And residents are welcome to refer to that page for any questions. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Director Justice. Seeing no questions from the commission, I think we'll move on to item 8, Commissioners' informal discussion. Are there any reports or information that any of the commissioners would like to share? Hearing none, we'll move on to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Benavides has moved to adjourn. Commissioner Gay has seconded the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, the meeting for April 13th, 2021 is adjourned at 9:12 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Night.
Thank you.